Good morning, Breakfast with Bacon fans. So many of you are interested in health. So many of you are interested in holiness. So many of you are interested in fasting. So many of you are interested in just being the best person you can be for Christ. Well, my guest today is Patrick Chisholm, and he is the author of a book called Holy Health. This one right here, How Church Makes You Healthier and Happier. And I know that might sound just kind of like a nice, happy topic, but there are some really heavy things in there that we are going to talk about. Did you realize health has anything? Well, I'm sure you do, but we're going to talk about suicide and divorce and healthy marriage and how these things intersect. So without me doing too much of the talking, Patrick, I wanted to welcome you to Breakfast with Bacon. Thank you for being so patient. It's been about 5 months since since I've invited you.
I think so. I believe so. Early October.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fine with me.
Can I start straight up? What caused you to write this book? Did you have any health concerns? Did you?
No, the only health concerns I had is I wanted to live a longer life. No, especially 10 years ago or so, I was more of a lukewarm Catholic. And I was going to church every Sunday, but I wasn't too into it. I wasn't doing much else apart from at church, apart from just going to church. Like I wasn't engaged in activities. And so I guess I was reading some blogs or came across some articles indicating the health benefits of church and the longevity benefits of church. And that led me to the academic studies themselves. And I started reading some of the academic studies about church and health benefits, and the fact that churchgoers live anywhere from 5 to 10 years longer on average than non-churchgoers. Actually, key study indicated that churchgoers live 6 to 7 years longer than non-churchgoers, but several studies have found different years. But the most important study in the eyes of scholars is that it's about 6 to 7 years.
Wow.
So I thought, and one of the reasons why they found why church prompts people to live longer and also them to be healthier overall, it was the social aspects of church, social interaction, not just being around people at church, but church-sponsored activities, volunteer groups, men's groups, just
Community.
Yeah, right. Community, all kinds of things associated with church. So that's one of the things, just human interaction, social interaction. So I thought, maybe I think I'll go ahead and join the men's group. That Man Is You. So I joined that. I've been a member of that ever since for the last 10 years or so. And because of that and other factors, I started to take church much more seriously, the faith much more seriously. I started to learn about the faith. I think it was at That Man Is You that the main host recommended that people wear the miraculous medal. So I started to wear the miraculous medal. And after my miracle, I'd like to say that my miracle was that I had a voracious appetite for learning and reading about the faith and church. So I read as many books as I have been reading. I still have a voracious appetite. Read as many books as I can, read as many websites I can, listen to podcasts or listen to audiobooks. So that's what got me into this topic. And all my life, I had been wanting to read a book. I do have a background in writing and editing, but not in a lot of articles and things. But
Right.
but not a book. And I've been wanting to read a book, but it's so time consuming and such a big project that I never got around to it. So I started doing the research, started compiling and organizing these various scholarly studies, and there are many of them. Literally thousands of scholarly studies attesting to the health, both mental and physical health benefits of church. So I started sort of organizing them and putting them into groups and categories, and just with the plan of writing a book. I did that for about a year or so, and then kind of maybe life got in the way with family and things, so I didn't have time. I kind of put that project aside. And I was reading, I think C.S. Lewis was saying that if you go to church, you shouldn't be for the associated benefits of church. It should be just for love of God.
Right.
And it shouldn't be for other extraneous reasons. So I think, well, maybe I should rethink about this idea of writing a book. But at any rate, a few years later, I was reading my diaries from, I don't keep a diary anymore, but back when I was in high school and college, saying that, hey, one of my life goals was to write a book. So figured maybe I should get back onto that project. So I resumed that
Before you
project.
die, so you can have a longer
Right.
life.
Right. And as far as the C.S. Lewis quotes, it's fine if, of course, if you go to church, the main reason should be for love of God,
Right.
and advancing in the faith. But and as far as any health or mental benefits associated with it, that's just an added bonus, just an added bonus. Your main reason and my main reason for going to church is that it's not because of health and longevity. If I do live a longer life and healthier, then great. And by the way, I am pretty healthy. I was healthy even before this project, 10 years ago. I still am. And actually, I would say now that I'm going to church, taking church much more seriously, I'm definitely happier. And I was happy before, but I'm even happier now. So I went to work on the book, and it took me probably about 2 additional years to write it because there's a lot of research. So as I said, there's literally thousands of studies on this topic, academic peer-reviewed studies. And I think I focused on about 250 of them. I cite about 250 of them in the book. So that's a lot of work and a lot of citations.
Can I ask you which ones, so you're right, there's a
Mhm.
lot of research on it. Maybe some
Yeah.
of the people watching are like, yeah, I know that.
Mhm.
But which were the ones that struck you the most? Obviously, the things that we, made it in here, like suicide and depression, which we knew, and
Yeah.
marriage and sex. But what stuck with you as new knowledge? Like, no
Well, there's
idea.
that key study in 1999 by Robert Hummer on the longevity benefits of church, and the fact that churchgoers, regular churchgoers, talking about not like once a month, I'm talking about once a week or more, live an average of 6 to 7 years longer than non-churchgoers. And for African Americans, the difference is 14 years. African Americans live on average, that study found 14 years longer, the church-going African Americans than non-church-going. So that was a key study. As there several of them. The foremost scholar in this is a gentleman by the name of Dr. Harold Koenig of Duke University, and he's been in this field for decades, and he was one of the people who started the research on this in the late 1980s. So in the 1990s, a lot more papers have came out, and probably in the hundreds, and since then it's been in the thousands. But as far as specific papers, there's a lot of them. There's
just topics. So
it
was more like what one piece of so you said the longevity. So let me kind of go to, I told you before we went on the air, something that really struck to me is like the health factor. The people watching my show are pretty much into, the time is short. We need to live a good life. And so if we're going to be here, if we're going to be fighting off, if we're going to be in a battle, and we need to stay healthy and in shape. So what is this in there about the health factor?
The hell, there's HELL. Health factor. Actually, well, they found that people who have a strong belief in hell are holier. They're more devout in their faith, because of we don't want to go there. The stick, there's carrot of heaven and the stick of hell, because you don't want to go there. So more devout in their faith. They so they with hell in mind, when they're more devout in the faith, they tend to take church more seriously, practice the faith to a greater extent, and the studies have found that people who are more deeply religious are healthier as well, both mentally and physically. In the area of suicide, that I've personally known people, and studies have shown that, and a lot of psychologists have talked about the fact that hell has prevented people from taking their own lives, the threat of hell. So that's one area. And
can I mention something there?
Yes.
So I have a I don't want to say friend, neighbor, person, right? Okay. Who was contemplating suicide, and I approached him one day because he was in tears, and he was an adult man, and he's like, I'm done. I'm over it. And of course, me, I'm going to keep on digging. I'm not one of those. It's like, oh, I hope you feel better. And I was like, let's talk about this. And he finally got down to I'm going to do this. I'm just over it. The pain is too, and we kept focusing on the pain that was causing it, the pain of this, the pain of that, the pain of, as a matter of fact, this one had just dealt with a divorce, and the pain of that loss was so tremendous. And so fortunately for me, this person was a Catholic, not a practicing Catholic, but I just finally said to him, did you realize though that the church, now I wasn't, at the time, I wasn't up to date on church teaching. Remember, the church used to teach that if you commit suicide, you'd go to hell. The church does not teach that anymore. Of course, God has the freedom to make the decisions, whether that's, mental illness or whatever's happening, the extenuating factors. But I erroneously at that point, I said to him, but if you do commit suicide and there's a greater chance of you being condemned to hell, the pain there is even greater than what you're feeling right now. I literally, Patrick, it's like this light bulb in his face. Like, and he had been grieving. I'd been watching him for many, many months. And I said, don't do this. Satan is trying to get you to go to a place where the pain never ends.
Right.
And
Out of the frying pan and into the fire. Classic case.
And it worked. We began to talk and he put it down and, the sobbing began. And then he told me how he was planning to do it. And that was about 10 years ago. And he is living a happy, healthy life now. And, I'm so grateful. So you are absolutely right. I taught suicide awareness for many years, and deep faith is a protecting factor. Having a community is a protecting factor. And unless you want to keep talking about the suicide, I want to kind of trajectory change there to, the evil people who plan this COVID thing, and this diabolical 6 feet of social distance, this diabolical lockdown, separate you from people. That was an intentional separation from the very things that keep us healthy. And depression rates around the nation were skyrocketing. And, I myself feel, even right now, I always feel like there's this little low level depression. I'm a massive extrovert, but I work from my house now and I don't get out as much as I used to. So I always am feeling like I just am sad sometimes. And so, but I'm 58 and I run 6 miles a day and I just don't feel like it anymore. But this mental knowledge of keep doing it. I actually just crossed over to 2 of your subjects, right? The endorphins that you get from running are also a protective factor. But so talk about that idea, which you already started the show off with, community and being together, and how that it helps make us so much healthier because of the fact that we are in community. We are everything
that's
is
one of the,
go ahead.
That's right. Community, that's one of the factors. Just social interaction, just be happy interacting with people, conversing with them. It's in our nature. It's, go back to primitive societies. Humans lived in small groups constantly. They were hardly ever alone. They were constantly with around other people. They might have been arguing, bickering, but they some of the time but for the most part, they were talking with people, cooperating with people, going out their hunts with their fellow hunters, the women at cooking. So they're constantly, that's one of the anthropologists have found that primitive humans were in constant communication and conversation with each other. So we still need that. We still need that bonding, that social bonding, that conversation, communication. Yet there's so much isolation these days in society, in modern, especially modern societies in the cities, when people, even though where people are living in their apartments and they're right next to many other people in the apartment building, they just don't see each other that much. I found compared to when I've lived in an apartment, I live in a house now with a yard. I see my neighbors a lot more now than I did when I was in an apartment. So the social interaction is key, and they found so it's just interacting with people. And also, scholars aren't exactly sure what they know that social interaction is good for your health, and both mental and physical, but how that exactly happens, they're not sure. But one thing could be one theory I did come across is that your heart gives off electromagnetic waves about 6 feet from you. So say when you're in church, you're around other people at 3 to 6 feet, and their hearts are giving off electromagnetic waves. So even if you're not talking to them, you're around them, and you're communicating with them silently. So that's just one of the key things. Big factor is, and studies have found that that people who are in community activities, they tend to be healthier and live longer. Same with even non-church community activities, but church-sponsored community activities is even better in
Because
terms
you
of
have all
health
these
and
things that you're
longevity.
talking about. The
Yes.
body, mind, spirit connection. You know, that
Right.
6 feet, I never knew that. That 6 feet,
Yeah.
your heart waves. And that again goes back to this diabolical 6 feet of, I call it the unsocial distance. It's
Exactly.
like Satan knew, keep them further away so
Yeah.
they can't feel the heart rate of the other person. And it's just,
Right.
oh my gosh, you're just giving me all these, we need to stay in
Yeah.
community. What do you,
So it's community meaning, actually, yeah. So many things. There's several aspects associated with church and health, which is social interaction. That's one thing. Another one is meaning and purpose. Meaning and purpose, knowing that you're loved, knowing that there's an ocean of God showering an ocean of love for you. I mean, this compared to an atheist that just thinks that you're just, made up of, molecules that randomly came together somewhere in the evolutionary history, and that there's
my
nothing
grandmother
beyond
was an
this
amoeba.
world.
Yeah.
Right. So the meaning and purpose has a lot to do with it. The other aspect of church that is beneficial is gratitude, just sense of gratitude and thankfulness, and more churchgoers tend to be more forgiving. Another one is volunteer opportunities and activities. A lot of volunteer opportunities with the church, actually for your own church. A lot of people volunteer for the church directly, but also for charitable activities sponsored by the church. They found that a secular, I think it's Corporation for, I can't remember the name of it, but a secular volunteer organization did a study, and they found that people who volunteer are healthier and happier, and they live longer. And not talking about just volunteering, let's say an hour a month. It's when you volunteer, say maybe a couple hours a week. That's really good health wise for you. So, the same with social interaction. When you volunteer with your church, they found also, another study found that when you volunteer through church sponsored activities, it's even better for you than for secular volunteering. So volunteering, the charitable aspect is another beneficial aspect of regularly going to church.
I've studied happiness research, Patrick, and I mentioned to you, I think before we went on the air, the differences between hedonic and eudaimonic happiness. And I've done a video on this before, and I've taught some classes, but they've had what's actually called the field of positive psychology, which you probably studied to write this book, but they've been studying humor as far back as Aristotle, and happiness. I almost said humor, but the world is seeking, what's the two types of happiness they found is hedonic, which is where we get the root word hedonism from. And it is based on this. Happiness is the formula based on the greatest life's pleasures minus the bad things will make you happy. So I'm healthy, I got a beautiful wife, or my husband's great, we got a good income, cars running, kids are good, life is happy. But as soon as the car breaks down, or your wife leaves, or the kids get sick, you're not happy. And so what that does is it puts happiness based on this external, oh, I have no control of happiness. Oh, it just happens. So it's actually considered the short-termed and fleeting. The more of it you have, the more of it you need. So I eat this cookie. It's the best cookie I've ever had. It makes me happier than I've ever been. So I want to eat it again tomorrow and be just as happy tomorrow, but I'm not. I'm a little less happy. The next day, I'm even a little less happy. So less and less and less. And then eventually you need more and more and more of it. And again, that's where we get our addictions from. So that is not true happiness. But leading to what you said, eudaimonic happiness, eudaimonia, and monia come together to make the fulfilled spirit. It is considered by Aristotle as the highest human good. And that actually happiness is considered the pay it forward happiness. And instead of like the hedonic, the short-term and fleeting, they find that the more of it you practice, it's called the pay it forward happiness. So the more of it you practice, the more of it that comes back to you. So when you said the volunteerism, it makes perfect sense, because they found that those people who take and give to others are happier than those who don't. So this volunteering thing is huge. And you're right. Church is where we do most of our volunteering through.
especially retired persons, when they're not working anymore, they don't have a lot to do, they don't feel like they have the status or position in society that they used to, and they feel really good. They're helping the world, they're doing something. And they found, say, in nursing homes, they gave nursing home patients certain volunteer activities to do to help the other nursing home patients. They found that the nursing home patients with voluntary activities to do were healthier and happier. So it's just voluntary. It's amazing. And you talked about the different aspects of happiness. Now, I haven't come across those particular terms to describe happiness, but what you're describing is very similar to the 4 levels of happiness as described by, or as conceived by, Father Robert Spitzer, a popular Catholic theologian and head of the Maja Center for Reason and Faith, and former president of Gonzaga University, is also on EWTN and Father Spitzer's universe. Is very into the proofs of the existence of God and the Big Bang and things of that nature. But he also focuses on happiness and the 4 levels of happiness. And what you described corresponds to the first level happiness, which is immediate gratification, good food, good music, just basic material goods that make you happy. But once you consume them, or once you do this fun activity, it goes away and you're not happy anymore. Some people just live their lives for these fun activities, but once the fun activities end, they're they're not happy.
Look at Hollywood, though. They have high suicide rates, high depression rates, all the sad things, and they are the wealthiest and the best looking. And
right. And that has to do with the second level of happiness, which is called immediate. Actually, the first one's immediate gratification. The second one is personal achievement. The third is contributive, and the fourth is ultimate good. But the second one, personal achievement, is focus on status, focus on ego, focus on how you're doing compared to other people. You're getting a promotion. I want to get that promotion. I want to have this position in societies. I want to get actually, it has to do with level 1 happiness, getting status symbols and whatnot, whether it be your car or house or whatnot. So that's a little more grounded, and it's not all bad. It's not all bad. Same with first level happiness. It's not all bad. It's fun to have fun. It's great. It's good to have fun. It's good to try to achieve more and do better in your job and things. But sometimes when you sometimes you succeed when you succeed,
if your success
is
at the expense of someone else.
Yeah, it's expense of someone else. They don't get that promotion, you get that promotion. So it makes you happy to an extent, but even that's fleeting too, because you might get fired, something might happen to you,
or you've been at the job for 20 years,
you're humiliated for whatever reason, your job, or whether it be your job or other aspects of life. So that's a fleeting happiness too. Now, the third level is contributive, which is we talked about before, voluntary activities, helping other people. So that's a more grounded form of happiness. And the ultimate level, the fourth level, is called ultimate good, which is it has to do with the spiritual and transcendent, God and religion, and going to church because of your love for God, and not for any extraneous reasons like wanting to improve your health,
or just get to heaven. I don't care if I see God. I just don't want to go to hell. So
right. So it's Father Spitzer describes the fourth level of happiness as ultimate love, ultimate beauty, ultimate being, ultimate goodness. And many saints who lived in poverty didn't have much by way of the first and second level of happiness. They had the third and fourth levels of happiness, and they were just the happiest people you can be. And priests, studies have found that priests are some of the happiest people in the world as well. So those are the different levels of happiness, and obviously our goal is to reach, is to attain or
The
achieve
highest.
the third and fourth levels of happiness. And keep in mind that the third level, voluntary, when you do volunteer activities or donate a lot of money, sometimes the second level can creep into that. Sometimes ego can creep into that, where you want to get recognized, you want people, want your name printed up, or you want all these awards and things because you did all these wonderful
Right.
charitable
What are your
activities. So
motives?
you want to try to avoid that. You just want to do things, as it says in the Bible. It says, God said, you want to try to do good deeds in secret to the extent possible. So
It sounds like the first two levels are focused on the self. The third
mhm,
level is focused on others, and the fourth level
yeah,
is focused on God. We have to
right,
through others. I
mhm,
have to serve others, but if my ultimate goal is I
yeah,
just want to stay focused on God,
hmm,
and you're right, that is true happiness. That's pretty cool stuff.
yeah.
I never heard of those
Hmm.
four levels before. You
So
know,
it's wonderful. Yeah, if you go on YouTube, type in Father Robert Spitzer, four levels of happiness. There's a good hour-long
or just read your
presentation.
book.
You can read that too. He gives a great hour-long presentation on that at Christendom College. So it goes into more detail. So
My expertise is in marriage, so I'd
mhm,
love to hear what you have to say about your
yeah.
findings on health and
Mhm.
holiness in marriage.
Uh, I would think that the chapter on marriage, it's chapter 6. It's called couples who pray together stay together. You've probably heard that expression before. So that's definitely the case. They've found that not only I think the statistics. Just a minute, let me. The statistics show that. Let's see. Oh, let me just go to. Okay, church-going couples are 30 to 50% less likely to divorce. And after regular church going early in marriage, if they cease to go to church, they have a 2.5 times higher likelihood of divorce than had they continued to go to church. So and the very religious are significantly higher to have a very higher quality relationships and be very happily married than somewhat or just non-religious couples. So the benefits of church and deep faith as far as marriage is just as is enormous, and it's also really important. I think there's three statistics in my books attesting to the importance of the men going to church in addition to the husband going to church in addition to the wife, because so often, probably much more often than otherwise, the wife usually goes to church,
Mm-hmm.
is more likely to go to church. If only one couple goes to church, it's usually if only one spouse
Person.
goes to church in the couple, it's usually the woman that usually goes to church. But that's which is great that the wife is going to church, but much better if the father goes to church as well, the husband goes to church as well, because they found that they have happier marriages. As a matter of fact, in cases where only the father goes to church and the wife does not go to church, the level of happiness in the marriage is almost equal to if both spouses are going to church.
Wow.
So it's really, and yet, and so it's really important that the husband goes to church. Not only that, but when the father goes to church, the kids have much higher
Higher likelihood.
likelihood of keeping the
Following.
faith when they're adults, much astronomically high.
It's
Actually,
actually like, I think 95%. If the husband is the faith
mhm,
leader in the family, 95% of the family follows. If it's the
right,
mom, it's 75%. And if it's
yeah,
a child, it's like 50%. So it's a
hmm,
crapshoot. But you are so
right,
right. You men have so much more power, praise God. And we need to, but
hmm,
I do that all the time though. We need to hold men accountable and saying,
hmm,
no matter how feminist overrun our society is, we know that a good, solid male leader is what we're all looking for, you know?
right. So it's key. And also, when father goes to church, the not only do the kids have a higher likelihood of going to church, but also staying out of trouble, staying out of drugs,
Oh,
staying out of alcoholism when they're adults as well. So it's any fathers or any men listening to this and not going to church, whether you're married or not married, it's just so important to go to church. I mean, obviously, the main reason is for your spiritual enlightenment and being closer to God, but also for many other reasons as well that we talked about just now.
Yeah, because a lot of men want to provide for their families. And so I am
Mhm.
taking care of my family. I'm giving them food, shelter, clothing, which is
Mhm.
good. But if you're not giving them the faith, none of the other provisions really matter if they're not
Yeah,
getting that. So
yeah.
give them, provide them the
Mhm.
greatest thing they need.
It's the most important thing in life. Definitely.
You know
Most
what
important
you're
thing in
giving me?
life.
This whole book is
Mhm.
around kind of what our secular society doesn't do. So we have our,
Mhm.
it takes body, mind, and spirit, Patrick. What I've noticed, what you've done
Right.
in all these
Holistic
chapters.
health. This is
Right.
holy health is holistic health, body, mind, and spirit.
You can't separate
Mhm.
them.
Right.
Yeah. So if your spirit is
Mhm.
good, your body's good, your mind is good.
Mhm.
And we have yet so many practitioners out there, like psychiatrists and psychologists, that just help with the mind. And they don't want
Mhm.
to tell you about what to do with your body. And some,
Yeah.
like physical therapists, they just tell you how to help. You're sick, you're hurting, they'll take
Mhm.
care of the body, but they're not asking you about your
Right.
mind and your emotions and
And your faith.
your
And
faith.
that's what the I mentioned before, Harold Koenig of Duke University, that's what he and his team and his colleagues are trying to do, trying to get healthcare practitioners to integrate faith to a greater extent in their
Yes.
interactions with patients,
Yes.
both mental and both physicians and psychiatrists. And they're having some success. Like a lot of these papers are being published in very, prestigious medical journals like the Lancet and the Journal of American Medical Association, the British Medical Journal. And they've achieved one thing they have achieved, one success they've achieved is that almost all medical schools now have courses in spirituality. Now they're typically elective courses, but at least they have courses. Where in the 1990s, very few medical schools had courses in spirituality. So I mean, there's still a lot of work to do, but slowly but surely, more and more doctors are integrating faith into their practice, in the sense of at least asking their patient about their faith background and whether it'd be helpful for them to have a chaplain on hand, or encourage them to get more in touch with their faith, especially people who are suicidal or whatnot. Uh, so so there is progress in that regard, which is great. And
Which is
even secular, I mean, a lot of these doctors and so many psychiatrists are secular. They're not religious themselves, yet they still realize the importance of religion for their patients.
I've also read, Patrick, that's very
Mhm.
intriguing because it connects to other research I've seen where studies have been done on prayer itself. Secular stuff, like there was
Mhm.
one study I read about two wheat fields. One wheat field was prayed for, the other one was not, and there was a statistical significance in the
Yeah.
growth of the wheat. But then going into
Mhm.
our health per se, there was
Mhm.
a double-blind study, which means the people being prayed for didn't know, and the people doing the praying
Mhm.
didn't know who they were praying for. Terminally ill people, and again, there was statistical significance in those people that were
Mhm.
being cured, who were being prayed for, and then
Yeah.
the other one that's real specific to marriage, to health, is prayer has shown to drop cortisol levels. And cortisol
Mhm.
is what it's our stress hormone. So
Right. And
faith, we
actually,
know
yeah, that's
that.
key. But I want to back up. You talk about these prayer studies. That's a separate genre of study. I mentioned the thousand studies on religion and health. Well, there's a small genre of studies focusing on They're called intercessory prayer studies, or randomized trials of prayer. There are
Wow.
probably a few hundred of them, where they have two groups of people in the hospital. One group, then they have intercessors or people praying for them, but just for one group. And the other group is a control group where those intercessors are not praying for them. Now it's probable that
Someone is praying from
their friends and
somewhere.
loved ones are being prayed for them. So you can't, these
But that's
studies
true on
aren't
both
exact,
sides.
right? The studies aren't exact, but they I have found that looking at all these hundreds of studies, the majority of them show that prayer really works. I have a chapter in the book,
Scientifically.
right,
Scientifically.
scientifically, and these are secular scientists doing these studies. I have a chapter on that called Supernatural Graces. And by the way, the main reason why people are healthier and happier is, apart from those reasons that I mentioned before, is God. Grace is from God. And
Yes.
these intercessory prayer studies show that prayer really works, that God is really showering his graces down upon us. Now, in most cases in these studies, the secular scientists, they're not going to mention that, not going to mention anything about that. They're not going to mention anything about the graces that we get from the Holy Eucharist or confession or whatnot. But some scientists, secular scientists and non-secular scientists, do these studies. So, and that shows, but beyond reason about that, that prayer really works. So, and there are a lot of secular, some of the medical journals have talked about miraculous healings and spontaneous remissions, where you actually people pray over somebody who has cancer or whatnot, and the cancer goes away. Many instances of that. But actually, my book doesn't focus on that. It focuses on just the general aspects, positive aspects of prayer and faith. So that's the graces from God. That's probably the biggest reason, the biggest benefit from going to church as far as health and wellness.
I think that's the only reason. We just kind of categorize it in some of these other actions that we do. You guys, this book, I'd love you to see some of these chapters in the book are forgiving, how forgiveness helps your health. And we can talk about that, how we have, we talked about depression, but no pain, no gain, mercy and justice, the balance between those. We have church being good for kids, church and sex, which actually married people who are going to church have better and more frequent sex than those who don't.
Right. Secular researchers have found that conservative Christians have the best sex lives.
And the most frequent.
Not only that, but Catholics who practice NFP, natural family planning, have the best sex lives. So it's kind of ironic because you have to abstain from it for several days of the month, many days of the month, but the times that you do have it, it's actually more fulfilling than people who don't practice NFP.
But that makes sense, Patrick, doesn't it? It's like if I have a chocolate cake here and I can eat it every day and it's served every day and I have a great cook and I'm eating this chocolate cake, eventually you're going to get sick of it. But when it's like, your mom's like, no, you guys can't have this chocolate cake until Wednesday or until after you've done something, you're like, and you want it. And that's just natural psychology. We want that which we can't have.
Yeah.
So how beautiful is that?
Right. I have a similar analogy to that in the book that you just mentioned.
Yeah, what is it? Can you tell us?
I think I mentioned chocolate cake. I think that was my example. so maybe you came across that in the book, but anyway.
Oh, okay. Well, so what I want is this book is rich. It talks about the supernatural effects of health and holiness, talking to your doctor, seeking your spiritual care, being a good citizen, reasons to believe, psychotherapy for free. I love that.
Actually, right. Actually, confession I call confession a mini psychotherapy session for free, because confession is tremendously fulfilling. I mean, it's too bad that so many Catholics don't go to confession. I mean, prior to the Second Vatican II, Second Vatican Council, the vast majority of them went to confession. And someone said that prior to Vatican II, the fewest number of people in psychiatric wards were Catholic. After Vatican II, the most number of people in psychiatric wards were Catholic. So that kind of tells you. Actually, only about 15% of Catholics go to confession regularly. So if we get that number, I mean, and half of them never go at all. But there's a lot of research on the therapeutic benefits of confession. So humans have a compulsion to confession, one researcher found. So that's incredible. So incredible. Confession is a wonderful thing. The other sacraments, obviously the Holy Eucharist, actually Eucharist adoration, just spending an hour before our Lord, that has tremendous healing powers for people. So if more people were aware of that and would do that, then that would be great. It'd be wonderful for them and for society as a whole.
I want people to read this book, Holy Health, How Church Makes You Healthier and Happier.
Yeah. Well, like I said, it's a great gift for friends and loved ones who've fallen away from the church. I say, if you can't convince them to come back to the church on spiritual reasons, convince them on worldly reasons. If they want to be healthier, happier, live a longer life, a happier life, read the book.
Yeah, but you know what, Patrick, is so hard. People will see that Holy Health, they're like, oh, I want to do it. And they won't read it. So what I say is, you read the book, you get happier, you get healthier, and other people watch you and they'll be like, what are you doing differently? Well, I'm going to church. You know what I mean? and would give them a chance to open that door to that conversation. because I've kind of changed my strategy. I used to be more of a look, listen. I realized that people aren't there.
Mhm.
Logic doesn't
Yeah.
work.
Well,
They don't want logic.
and also, actually, I found that older people who read the book kind of have regrets because a lot of these, you wish you would have, a lot of these practices, you wish you would have gone to church when at a younger age, to enjoy all these benefits. So, but there's still a lot of great benefits. Older people should still read the book. A lot of great benefits that older people get sick, that go to church, get sick less. They still live longer. They spend less time in the hospital. They have better post-hospital recovery rates. But if younger people, especially with the youth mental health crisis going on right now, if younger people would read this book before they start their lives, before they get married, before they do all these things, and realize the importance of going to church in terms of their mental health and physical health, I think mental health is more important. That's even more important that young people would read the book.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Where can people get the book from?
Okay, I don't think you can get them. I don't think you can get it in bookstores, but you can get them everywhere else, in Barnes and Noble online, Walmart online, uh, of course, Amazon, and also the audiobook. You go to audible.com, and also other audiobook outlets has the books. If you want to listen, if you don't have the time to read, I listen to I love audiobooks. I
Yep.
listen to a lot of audiobooks. So if you don't have time to sit down and read the book, you can listen to the audiobook during your commute or during your exercise or whatnot.
Yeah. So Amazon, you have a website too, right?
Yes, it's 70 times 70times70.com.
Do you spell that
70
out?
times is spelled out.
SEVEN.
Yeah.
Okay.
70 times spelled out, and then the number 70.com. That has more, it has the charts, a lot of the charts, more information about some of the more recent research on church and health. Some articles and blog posts on that, and also you can order the book there's a link to
From
order
that
the book,
website.
and also I post a lot of the charts, a lot of great graphics and charts in the book that are posted on the website.
And I have a link to that right below the show. So just look right there and you can click on it. And so that'll be easier. You don't have to remember, I'm a bad speller. How do I do that? 70 times what? So just click on the link below and you'll be able to get access to the book. Patrick, any other things? Oh, let me just do it this way. Name one thing you'd have our listeners do differently as a result of something we talked about today.
Differently. Get involved in if you're a man, get involved in the men's group. If you're a woman, get involved in the women's group. If you're going to church, but you're not taking part in too many outside activities, Bible studies, charitable, outreach activities, get involved, because there's so many benefits to that. Not only health and wellness, but also just personal benefits, and also learning about the faith. I mentioned before, I learned so much about the faith in my men's group that I'm in. So I'm really grateful for that.
That is awesome. So all of you guys, I want you to get a copy of this book, Holy Health, how church makes you healthier and happier. Body, mind, spirit. We are in the fight for our lives right now. We've got to do our best to stay healthy so we can fight the, demonic powers that are out there in the world today. We need to be the leaders in this, our minds, our hearts, our physicality. So people will watch us and God's going to use you, and he is going to judge you one day on how'd you take care of that temple. I gave you that temple of the Holy Spirit. Why were you not exercising? Why were you smoking? Why were you not doing such and such? So we are going to be accountable to it. So I also have to plug for my own book, because you want a happy, healthy marriage. Read the Super Couple, A Formula for Extreme Happiness in Marriage. I studied those couples to find out, was it a formula or was it accidental? It was, in fact, a formula. And that formula changed my own marriage. It has changed thousands of marriages. And I would like for it to change yours. And just like Patrick said about his book, read it before you're married so you can go into it knowing what it's going to take to have a happy, long-term, thriving marriage. And boy, if you read his book, Am I Together? Happy, Holy, well, how amazing will that be? We Christians need to set the lead on this kind of thing. So you can get that at my website, breakfastwithbacon.com. And you can also go to Amazon, Books A Million, Barnes and Noble, all that stuff, and get a copy of that book. But not about me. Oh, and look me up for speaking gigs and, working with you and your couple if you want to help save your marriage. So anyway, I think we've pretty much covered a lot of this. And Patrick, you remember how I end my shows, right? You don't have to say it yet. Think about it. All of you guys, I want to thank you for watching. I am Dr. Christine Bacon. You have been watching Breakfast with Bacon. And I'd like to remind you always to live your life
Sunny side up.
sunny side up. You're good.